I have a client, bless her, she's, I think, 66 years old, difficult life, but she's just got this beautiful spirit. And one of the therapy techniques I shared with her that helped her stop her panic attacks that she was having, she taught this skill to her sister, her son, her neighbor, her nephew, her grandchild. Her
Oh, that's
grandchild,
awesome.
one of the grandchildren is in college and had some of my words on a index card before giving a presentation. And the professor read it and said, I'm going to use that. I was like, holy cow, is this, it was a true demonstration of ripple.
Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notified when the next video comes out. It only takes 2 seconds to make 2 clicks. So let's do it. Let's get back to the video. Hello, Fearless Freedom fam. This is Dr. G, and I am so excited to have another episode of the Fearless Freedom with Dr. G podcast. Today, we have with us Karen Robinson. And Karen, you have got to tell the Fearless Freedom Tribe all about you and what you are up to, lady.
I would love to. So thanks so much for having me on your show today. I am a clinical therapist and a trauma recovery coach. And so mostly what I do is therapy sessions for anyone surviving trauma, our active duty veterans, family members, and then those surviving any kind of interpersonal trauma. So despite the heavy work I do, I really try to ingrain a sense of playfulness and that healing and being your best self doesn't always have to be super painful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that is a very, very specific area in which to focus. So, I'm always curious when, people say that, that they do specific things like this, where you're targeting a particular clientele. How is it that you got to that point? Like what was the impetus?
Oh, yeah, excellent question. So for me, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. My family actually lives in Canada. So my
Okay.
mom was American, my dad was Canadian, and I grew up in a really dysfunctional home with lots of
Okay.
poverty
Okay.
and lots of trauma. There was domestic violence, there was child abuse. I had a suicide attempt at an early age, and then I ended up running away from home. So because of those experiences, and I actually had a really bad social worker, and really bad might not be the right words, but I had it not so much. This person was not compassionate.
Fair.
He
Okay.
said things to me like, you must have been a really bad teenager or daughter. Um, why are you doing this to your parents? You must be on drugs. You must be sleeping around. And those things were not true. And honestly, if they were true, it
But
didn't
still, you
justify
shouldn't
the
say
way
that to
that
a
he talked
child. I
to
mean,
me.
come on, really?
Exactly. And so from that moment on, I was like, I'm going to grow up to be a social worker and I'm going to care. Like, I'm really going to try to help people and not shame them,
Right.
because you can't help what kind of family you're born into. You just
That's right.
can't.
You don't choose it. Do not choose that.
Yeah, so that's
Wow.
kind of how I got started. And once I ran away from home, my aunt and uncle ended up becoming my guardians, and I really just flourished in their home. There was food to eat.
That's
There was
important.
there was heat. Um,
Yes.
and I worked really hard at school and ended up getting a full scholarship for university.
Awesome.
Then I stayed
Awesome.
on and got my master's, and that's how I got started.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing your
Thank you.
story. It's like you just never that's it, right? You never know what the backstory is because that is usually the thing. That's your why. You have a
Mhm.
very strong why because of what you experienced firsthand, and that makes what you do invaluable on another level because now you can actually identify with your clients, which that's amazing. That's really amazing. And I'm a firm believer that nothing happens to you that isn't supposed to happen so that you can actually grow from it and or help somebody else because of that experience. And I mean, that is the things that happened were horrible and no child should ever have to go through that. But now you're in a position where you can actually change the course of other people's lives and many other people's lives, which that's priceless. That's absolutely priceless. So thank you for being
Amen.
strong enough and brave enough to have made it through that because the fact that you were able to do that has made such a ripple effect and impact that is probably immeasurable. And you haven't even told me anything about like what you do yet, but I just know this because that
It's
is
true.
what
It's so
happens
true.
when you're
Yeah.
passionate about something, when you have a purpose, you make incredible impact. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
tell
One
us
of my
now. So you,
clients,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
no, I was just
Sorry,
going to
say,
share a quick story that kind of
yeah, go
demonstrates
ahead.
your point. I have a client, bless her. She's, I think, 66 years old. Difficult life, but she's just got this beautiful spirit. And one of the therapy techniques I shared with her that helped her stop her panic attacks that she was having, she taught this skill to her sister, her son, her neighbor, her nephew, her grandchild. Her
Oh, that's
grandchild,
awesome.
one of the grandchildren is in college and had some of my words on a index card before giving a presentation. And the professor read it and said, I'm going to use that. I was like, holy cow, is this, it was a true demonstration of ripple. So, I'm
Yes,
glad you
yes,
made
that's
that
awesome.
observation. Yeah.
That is awesome. Wow. No, that's great. That is great. So you're helping them. I mean, so we talk a lot about facing fear on this podcast. So you're actually giving them tools that allow for them to face their fears and do so very boldly, right? Because you just mentioned that he used that, was it a he or she? That the
She.
grandchild used it for, to kind of help before doing the speech. And if that grandchild is anything like me, then they have a fear of public speaking. And so, I have rituals that I do before I speak in front of a crowd. And so it sounds like he's utilizing or she's utilizing that index card as a bolster, as something that's going to help them to face the fear of going in front of others and speaking, which is, it puts a chill down the spine of a lot of people, most people even, because they would say like, I find this to be quite interesting, but they say over and over again that people fear speaking in front of other people more than they fear dying, which I think is crazy, but I could totally understand why.
Mhm. Well, if you're dead, there's nothing left to fear.
Rare fair. That's true. That is fair as in
You're out.
FAIR. Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. So tell us now. So you found a loving family in your aunt and uncle. You were able to apply yourself because now you have the tools. You have food in your belly, you have shelter that is reliable, you have heat, so you're not having to worry about extraneous things. So you can actually focus on what kids should be focusing on, which is learning as much as they can, right? And then you get
Mhm.
a scholarship, you go to college, you finish up, and then what happens next?
Mhm. I stay at college. I love it. So, I got my master's And then I decided to pack up and move to Washington, D.C.
Oh,
So I
wow.
did inner
Okay.
city social work my first couple of years, and I just can't tell you how much I learned doing that with community mental health. I worked with homeless people. I worked with people struggling with dual diagnoses, some alcohol and drug issues, a lot of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You don't people don't understand inner city trauma unless you either live it or work hand in hand with people trying to survive. And so it was just a very powerful experience for me. I just really grew to, even though I had a difficult, dysfunctional family, it was still very different than, inner city struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, one of the schools I worked in after that community mental health center, my students would hide their weapons on their way to school. Like,
Oh, no.
you're like, what kind of world is this that, kids have to do this? And so, but
Right.
that was their reality.
Mm.
So I've done a lot of stuff since I got my education. I worked with the DoD, Department of Defense, for 17 years and got to spend 5 of those years in Okinawa, Japan with the Marines there. But I'm purple, meaning I've worked all services. And even
Okay.
though I'm no longer with the DoD, I still have a lot of active duty and their family members as well as veterans that I work with. But I work with people all over the country, the world, all faiths, all nationalities, um, all I was gonna say all genders, but I guess that's a thing now. It's not just two genders anymore. You know, no matter what someone's sexual orientation or gender preference, I tend to embrace and love humans. So that's kind of what I've done ever since graduate school.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And then so now you've had you had a varied and very like deep wealth of experience over the years, right? So now you said that initially you went right into the fire. You went into DC, and you were. I mean, I can't imagine what the difference must have been as far as like culture shock to go from Canada
Maine.
and then
Well,
coming
Maine
to
too, yeah.
DC. Where were you in Canada? Where were you in
New
Canada?
Brunswick. It's right by the Maine border.
Oh, so you're
They
by yeah.
no diversity other than our native. My family lived near a native reservation, but otherwise, really no diversity. And so I think what that did for me is like I really wanted to be around diverse people. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to experience different cultures and try different things. To me, it's exciting to get to know different people and the way that they're living their lives. So I've been married before. I got married in college and then that didn't work. Then I got married in my 30s because I really wanted a beautiful baby and I was so worried I was going to have a baby. That marriage didn't work. And so now I'm remarried. But my
Wow,
family
girl,
and
you are
friends,
like
I know, but I'm
you're
done.
like, you
I'm
know
so
what?
done.
I
My
am just gonna
husband,
keep trying until I find the right fit.
and I did it.
I
I
love
did
it.
it. I did it because I had a checklist this time, damn it. It's like,
No, but that's good. You
it's got
have
to
to have
be
a
X, Y, and
standard.
Z.
You have to have the standard. That's fantastic.
But just to show, like, my first husband was from Haiti. My second husband was from Peru. And then my
Okay.
my current spouse is African American, but he's from Long Island.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, yeah. But our values are so much alike that's why this marriage is working. We've
Sure,
been together
sure,
for
yeah.
over 10
And
years.
plus
I
you're
finally
also
figured it out.
but also, I mean, but that's a real thing though. I mean, because like, you know, we tend to not really know what we want when we're in our teens and 20s, right? We start
Hmm.
learning what
Hmm.
we want in our 30s and we really know what we want in our 40s. So I mean, I don't know.
Amen.
I feel like, sometimes for some people, I mean, there are definitely people who meet the person that they're going to be with for their entire lives when they're like 13 or 14. That's fine. But that's not the majority of people, right? Because we are
Right, right.
constantly evolving. And if you are not, the two of you aren't evolving at the same rate, or if you're not like malleable enough to like if you're not, if you're not the same level, that you're willing to catch up to the other person's level of evolving, then it's not going to work. Right. And this is what happens in our 20s. We're evolving in our 20s. We're finding ourselves.
Yeah.
By the time we're 30, we're like starting to really get to know who we are, what we want. And then we really, I call 40 I don't want to say it on the air, but like I call it the capital F era or decade, because then you're like, oh, I don't care what people think about me. Like, I know what I want, and this is what I'm going to get, and I'm not going to compromise. Like, this is what you start thinking and behaving like. So it's just a funny phenomenon. So when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, so that one was probably like in the teens, early 20s, and then the other one was probably late 20s, early 30. And then she's probably like either late 30s and early 40s now. Like, and that's just,
oh my gosh, that's so sweet of you.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
this is how it goes, right? So it's just funny that you said that. But I'm glad that you found a match now that is working.
Oh my God, I'm so happy.
Yeah, I'm glad, because, we don't always, you might go through an entire lifetime and never find a match that is compatible. And then you might, go through several iterations and until you find one. So, which I think is admirable as well, because number one, you're able to figure out that the other two were not compatible, and then you're brave enough to get out of it. Some people don't ever get out of things that they find aren't good for them or aren't going to be working for them. They just stay in it because they feel like that's the right thing to do, which is not good either. Right. So no, kudos.
Thank you. And I also think that the missing element too is when we come into a relationship, we're bringing our baggage and they're bringing their baggage. Yes. And so when you add all the baggage up, it's amazing that any marriage works, frankly. It's a lot of stuff,
It is a lot of stuff.
In your early 40s, late 40s, middle 40s, you sort of done some work at that point, or you're like the attitude that you were mentioning, like, I know what I want and that's what I'm going to have. So,
no compromising.
I know.
But when I say no, I mean, not that you're like unreasonable, but when I say no compromising, I mean, you're not gonna bend so that you're not going to be elevated. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to be thinking about, well, no, this is the thing that I am going to, these are the items that are on the table for potential removal for the deal, right? But these are the non-negotiable items as well. Like, so you have both, and how to wisely, navigate that, which you not so much are able to do in your 20s. I found. There's some exceptions, but in general,
well, you're not going to bend on your values.
No, that's what I'm saying. Right. Yeah. No, I'm not saying that. But, they're like,
no, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. Little things that are like, like when you're 20, you're like, oh, he has to have like perfect toes. And you're like, in your 40s, you're like, whatever, I don't care about the toes. What's he doing? What's he doing?
Toes.
How is he working on himself? I'm just saying, like, these are the frivolous things that we think about when we're like 20 years old. And I mean, that's not to say that, there are, like I said, there are 20-year-olds who are much more mature than that. And they're looking at things like, well, is this person looking to improve on themselves? Is this person looking to, create some kind of legacy, with the two of us as a family? Are they like encouraging me in what I'm doing? Is there something that I can encourage? And like, you just look at it very differently.
That's completely correct. Yeah.
So, I mean,
so now that you're I've been on lots of different podcasts, and you're the first one I just spilled about my marriages. Oh, I don't know what you did to me, but now all the tea is out.
There, it's all good. It's all good. I think that, the reason why that happened, I firmly believe that everybody who I have a conversation with, there is something in the conversation that was needed by the people that are listening to that particular episode.
Yeah.
And so maybe there is somebody who is in a situation where maybe they're in a marriage and they're like, well, I don't know, do I get out of this marriage if it's not working for me? I'm afraid of that. So that might be their fear, because we talk about fear and we talk about how we can overcome them. And to have someone say that, I had a situation where I was paired with somebody and it just didn't work out, and it didn't stop me from trying again, right? And even after the second iteration didn't work out, it also did not stop me from trying again. So the fear of the relationship not working out didn't stop you from pursuing relationships, which I think people also need to be aware of, because a lot of times people feel like, oh, it didn't work out, so I can't ever try again, because they just feel like the next time is going to be a failure. But it's not a failure. It is an experience, and you are learning what it is that you actually want. And so, no, I think that it was perfect that you talked about your marriages. So I thank you for sharing that.
I love that.
Hey, it's Dr. G, and I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for listening to this episode. I'm so honored to have you here with me. Did you know that I can help you to get your own podcast started? With my podcasting launch course for professionals, I walk you through everything you need to know about starting a podcast. I'm with you every step of the way, from sign up to launching your show, with 5 episodes ready to go. There's a done for you version that's also available if you would just rather just do recordings and leave the behind the scenes work up to us. Then that one is definitely for you. But either way, we've got your back here at Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Oh, if you already have a show and you need production services, we have monthly plans available for you. So check out the links in the episode show notes for more information. Let's get back to the show.
No, I love the reframe that it's experiences, because, I did in my early years, really, I was hard on myself. It's like I had people signing up to see me for marriage counseling, and I said to them, are you sure? know, I'm going through a divorce, so I want you to know I will completely understand if you want to work with a couples counselor who is in a better situation than I am. I just felt the need to tell them I haven't perfected this thing, and most people appreciate it. No one fired me.
Nobody's going
I
to
would have
change. You're
fired
going to
you
be
maybe.
like, wow, thank you. If anything, they're going to appreciate your candor, because that's huge, because you're actually being very vulnerable and open with them. And people appreciate that when someone's working with them, especially when you're working with somebody on things that are personal, because what you do is very personal. And so people have to trust you. And the fact that you're able to share what you're experiencing, good, bad, ugly, that is helpful for that trust to be built. So, yeah.
And I was also able to show them it takes 2 to make it work.
Yes.
So I could be the most amazing therapist in the world, which, I'm never going to claim. I think I'm really good at what I do. But, I tried and worked so hard on these relationships. But if the other person also doesn't do their part, and you have to have your grace for yourself.
Yes.
You can only do so much.
Yes, that is so true. So now I am curious, what is it? So, you have had there's so many places where this could come about, but I'm just wondering, what was the fear that you had to overcome in all of this? Whether it was, working overseas in a completely different country where the language is different, like when you were with the DOD, whether it is, with the relationships, whether it's starting the business. I don't know what you're going to say, but I'm curious about a fear you had, and how did you overcome that fear?
Yeah, I think later career makes the most sense because it's the freshest to talk about.
Sure.
But yes, being an entrepreneur, which, I do have my own business now, it was huge fears after working for the DOD is like being in a bad marriage in a lot of ways. It was something.
Really? Oh no.
For me,
Fair,
I shouldn't say that across the board. For me, like every time there was a change of command, you have different personalities coming and going.
Oh, I see.
And then
Okay.
And if you're lower level, at the beginning of my career, you have all these, this huge leadership change, and things would get lost in the middle management. I mean, my job got easier as I got promoted
I see.
in a lot of ways. But still, it was really challenging work for a lot of reasons. So anyway, forgive me, DOD people who are really happy with your jobs. Bless you. Okay. So, but yes, becoming an entrepreneur was there was a lot of fear into that because
Mhm.
it meant me needing to be more visible, and when you're a trauma survivor, there's a lot of subconscious belief about it's best to be invisible because you're less likely to get hurt in some kind of way. Okay.
Mm.
So that was
Okay.
one thing. Another thing, when I decided to go into business for myself, I had this revelation that I can't have a business solely focused on survivors if I wasn't willing to tell my own story. Okay. So the fear that I worked on overcoming is being more public about my own story. So I have done that by being on podcasts, by contributing to books
Mhm.
with my story. I am working on my memoir now. So that's the fear I had to overcome, was that vulnerability. You used that word. And God bless Brene Brown, Dr. Brown, and her
Oh,
work
yes.
on overcoming vulnerability, because it's huge. And so I took a leap of faith, and I'm like, well, this this could be, I don't know, am I allowed to curse? I won't curse. This could be
Yeah, you
very
can. But I
messy.
mean, it's
However,
like,
this
yeah, yeah.
I call it shit show. This could be a big shit show.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like I
totally.
thought some people in my family wouldn't talk to me anymore, but was interesting. It was people in my family I wouldn't have expected. And the people I expected were okay. It was very fascinating. Like, you can't predict
Oh,
people.
really? Yeah, you really can't.
Yeah, yeah. Even as a therapist, you just can't. And so, but I am okay with how because I told my story, and
Mhm.
it helps people to tell my story. So that's the biggest fear, is using your voice to tell your own story. So I hope I
Wow.
answered your question. Okay.
No, that was great. That was great. Yeah, no, that's good. Because I mean, your story, you always think like, man, I don't know. Like, I love that you kind of went through that mental exercise of, well, what is my family gonna say? Because they're in the story, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like these guys are the co-stars. What are they gonna say? You know. So I love that you went through that mental exercise. And I do also find it interesting that the people that you did predict would have a certain reaction weren't the ones, like it was the people you weren't even
Mhm.
thinking would respond were the ones that did it. So that's always an interesting like commentary on humans because they do some things
Right.
that you don't
Right.
expect. Oh my gosh. And so tell
Mhm.
us now, how can people work with you?
Well, there's a few ways to do that. I think my most favorite way, so if you're someone that wants to work on accountability in your growth to overcome any kind of fear, or adversity in your life, I have this virtual membership that I want to be global. I mean, I have people in different parts of the country, but my goal is, my mission is it for it to be global. And so it's a group of women who come together for a coaching call. We do it about once a month, and
Mhm.
we work on baby steps in our healing. So the first section we work on is healing from childhood wounds. The second area is any part of a relationship that we want to work on. And then the third is our future, whether that's career, entrepreneurship, community service, like all that's encouraged. So my membership is called This Is Us. The URL for that is
Okay.
healingfromtraumatogether.com. Okay, so that's
Okay.
my best thing that I offer. But of course, I do coaching with people around the world. My website is healthrivedream.com.
Perfect. Awesome. 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 Yeah, no, I think that's very important. I love that you focus on women. I feel like that's really good, because we need it.
Mhm. I still see men
Because
on an
half the
individual
time we don't
basis.
recognize
Yeah,
when we have issues going on because we're too busy taking care of everybody else and making
that's
things
right.
happen regardless of what's the situation. So I
That's right.
definitely thank you for that. So now, we're at the part of the show. Oh, I did have one more question for you.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at your logo, right? Because for those who are listening, she has her logo in the background. And it's like at the top of it, it says heal, asterisk thrive, asterisk dream. And then below it says a mother-daughter company. So that is my question. It says a
Mhm.
mother-daughter company. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have two daughters. And that's a long story how I ended up having two daughters, but that I won't share today. But
That's fine.
so my daughters are not old enough to be coaches or therapists. So how they helped my company, my middle daughter, what she did to help me is she designed the embossed logo for our physical journals that we sell.
Okay.
She
Okay.
designed that and we got those made. And
Okay.
then she's my stylish queen. Stylish queen.
Nice.
She's my diva. So she has a good eye and looks at any of the designs for the business. And then my oldest daughter, she's a sophomore in college. She does a lot of editing for me, like blog posts, the books that I write, any presentation she looks over and gives me brutal feedback, let me tell
That's
you.
lovely.
So
That's
that's why I
lovely.
call it a mother-daughter company.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love it. Love it. I'm so glad you shared that. And I love that you have the girls involved in the company. I think that is awesome. That's awesome. Family businesses are
Thank you.
really inspirational. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Cool. So we're at the point in the show where we do our fill in the blank tradition. Are you ready? Are you ready, Karen,
I
for the
well,
fill in the
I took the
blanks?
assignments. I took the
Okay. All
assignment
right. All
seriously.
right. All right. Cool. 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 The first one is if I am fearless, I will.
Write my memoir and share my story far and wide.
Love it. Love it. And then the next one is to me, fearless freedom means.
Stating your truth and telling your story.
Awesome. Awesome. And last but not least, my battle cry is
Use your voice.
awesome.
Women,
That's great.
women, we don't do that enough. That's what we got to do. We got to use our voice. Say no. Practicing saying no frees you up for when you really want to say yes. If you
Yes.
say yes to everything, when an opportunity comes along that you really, really want, you're going to be all tied up with
Yeah.
all the other yeses.
Yeah.
So no, practice it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us here on the Fearless Freedom Tribe. We really appreciate you. We appreciate all the work that you do. And we wish you all of the best with your company and with the girls growing up in such a great environment where they are able to participate in a family business. I think that's amazing. And also continue making the incredible impact that you're making on all of these hundreds of thousands of women all across the world.
Thank you so much for having me. Your interview questions were spot on. Very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Again, I'm Dr. G. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe so that you can get notified of when the next episode is going to be. And also, I'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.